That if Todd's going to win, though, he's going to need to do it quickly.
Well, there's big cards of what, like All Is Dust or Basilisk Collar.
Yeah, Basilisk
Collar's so good against his Todd's deck.
Collar plus Walking Ballista is really powerful here.
Yeah, see, turn 1 Urza's power plant for Todd. It'll be a Noble Hierarch. So some mana acceleration of his own. You're right, the interactive cards in Dan's deck don't match up as well here. You know, Relic of Progenitus, Chalice of the Void. That's not great, but just the big haymakers, the more he plays like a traditional Tron deck, the better off he's going to be here.
Yep. Relic does a little bit of work. You manage the size of Knight of the Reliquary, but it's not exceptional.
Yeah, for Todd Stevens, it is turn 2 Scavenging Ooze and an attack with Noble Hierarch for 1. Dan started off on a pair of Tron lands. He's missing the tower. See if he can just naturally draw all 3 pieces.
Landing a large Eldrazi fast would be really nice.
Yeah, well, he won't ramp to 7 this turn, but he will ramp to 4 with Eldrazi Temple. Here's Thought-Knot Seer. Todd shows a hand of 2 lands, Collected Company, and Path to Exile.
That checks the large Eldrazi box for me. 2 really good cards in Steven's hand. Collected Company, realistically, the best card in Steven's entire deck.
Yeah.
The question Musser's asking, what is he doing once his Thought-Knot Seer gets hit by Path to Exile?
Yeah, well, usually when you take the Path to Exile because otherwise it'll kill the Thought-Knot Seer, but Dan does take the Company. Figures he'll lose his Eldrazi, that's fine. At least Todd doesn't get, you know, 2 Knight of the Reliquaries off it.
Yeah, the battlefield presence that Stevens has presented to this point is pretty anemic.
Yeah, absolutely. Noble Hierarch tapping. Dan says I'll block. Todd says no, I'm pathing it. Pathed on his own turn with hoping to hit a threat. Todd's hand was all lands, but when the Thought-Knot left play, Todd drew a 4th land, so he has no choice but to just attack with Scavenging Ooze and pass. It's a big window for Musser.
It looks like both players using some kind of Michael Majors Pro token as their avatars. Different outfits. Musser favors the hoodie.
Who do you think, who's favored in the matchup?
Hoodies are very comfortable. They're good Magic playing attire. Yeah, Stevens is a dapper gentleman, but he's not dressed for the game.
That said, I think the popped collared shirt with top button unbuttoned is a harder look to pull off. So I'm gonna give. I agree with the hoodie statement, but I think Todd has a bit of a favorite here. It's the higher play skill play.
He has that with hoodie on top of it in the other token. If you
no,
look.
you don't. You can't. Popped collar hoodie doesn't work. It's one or the other.
That's so you say.
That's negative synergy.
I'm looking at it.
Here's a Reality Smasher. Todd's gonna go to 14.
Reality Smasher hits a lot harder than Scavenging Ooze with Exalted. Almost twice as much power.
A 60% increase in damage. 60%, yeah. That's what you look at. Suppose even 2/3 harder.
Your idea was great. Execution, it needs a little bit of work.
I said that, and then I was like, oh, that's math, and I was counting it the wrong way now. 67. Even at 60% or more. We'll just do it that way.
So what I found works best with math is you just say a number confidently, and everybody will believe you.
No, that's not. I don't like you.
I can't imagine anybody in Twitch chat or on Twitter fact-checking anybody about something as trivial as a number spouted off the top of your head.
Once I claimed that a creature was increasing its power exponentially when it was quadratically, and I still get tweets about that. That was like 8 months ago.
Why would you care about those tweets? Todd, no follow-up. Ghost Quarter entering the fray.
Ghost Quarter on both sides, actually. 13 life points apiece. No one's really drawn any follow-up. Dan's actually hanging on to the Relic here. Just tapping it as opposing to use it to fish for more threats.
His battlefield presence is currently more substantial than Stevens, and this stops something like a top deck Knight of the Reliquary from just being larger than the Reality Smasher.
Okay. Looks like Dan's floating a mana here. He's getting Ghost Quartered on the Urza's Mine.
Be a good spot for some kind of 6-mana spell.
Endbringer.
Yeah, Endbringer you could have got anyway with the Eldrazi Temple, but there's one Wormcoil Engine in the main deck.
That'd be great.
Maybe just all his dusts on this board.
Now Dan's last wastes is in his hand here, which could matter. It means that future Path to Exiles and Ghost Quarters from Todd are just
Well, if you're going to
All
win
upside.
the mana denial game, you have to manage the battlefield first. You can't just die to the Reality Smasher while you Ghost Quarter your opponent. You have to solve that one.
How about Walking Ballista on 3 from Dan? Uses 2 counters to shoot down Scavenging Ooze. Some good sequencing there, making sure to kill the Ooze before killing the Noble Hierarch. Voice Resurgence the draw for Todd. A bit late, though, as he's now losing the race at 9. So that's an interesting thing. You know, this is a Tron deck, and you're waiting for Dan to produce a finisher, but then you get to this board state where he really doesn't need one. He already has it.
Yeah, this deck's kind of a hybrid deck between Chalice of the Void, Prison, and just Tron, just the old green Tron decks you used to see. It can just win the deck with Reality Smasher and Thought-Knot Seer. These are heavy enough hitters. You don't have to go too big, you just have to go bigger than your opponent, and he's very much doing that in this game.
Karn liberated the play from Dan. Todd, that's enough of that. He will scoop him up, and they're going to move to game 2.
Speaking of traditional Tron stuff.
Yeah, they still do play some, right? They play Karns, what, 2 Karn?
Yep. Typically you see 2 copies, 1 or 2.
And it's something, you know, the green creatures versus ramp matchup can oftentimes be tough on the green side. Fortunately for Todd, he's got some sideboard for the matchup. 2 copies of Surgical Extraction, 2 Engineered Explosives, 2 Eidolon of Rhetoric, 2 Stony Silence, and then some one-ofs. A Linvala, a Reclamation Sage, a Kataki, an Eldritch Evolution, a Gideon's Intervention, an Elspeth's Son's Champion, and a Sigarda, Host of Herons.
Yeah, there's a couple really nice hits here, actually. Stony Silence is pretty nice. You can turn off things like Expedition Map, Walking Ballista. We see this one come in a lot. Linvala is fine because it can interact with Endbringer and Walking Ballista. It's not as relevant as Stony Silence usually is. Really nice hit, though, is that Elspeth's Son's Champion. You can use that to just destroy a bunch of Eldrazi in one fell swoop there, so that one's really nice in this matchup.
Yeah, that is interesting compared to a regular Tron deck where Elspeth is just, you know, you don't want to play a 6-mana card in a world of 7s and 10s. Elspeth's actually really good here.
Yeah, Elspeth's great against 4 and 5 mana Eldrazi, and it's good against, like, Karn. It can manage pretty reasonably. If your opponent's playing Ugin, it's a lot worse.
Now on Dan Musser's side, 3 Relic of Progenitus, that would bring him up to 4. 2 Warping Whale, 2 Blightherder, 2 Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Ratchet Bomb, 2 Spatial Contortion, and 2 Sorceress Spyglass.
Honestly, Musser's likely going to be doing pretty light sideboarding here. The Spatial Contortions are reasonable. He hit some of Todd's early creatures. Doesn't even hit them all, though, so it's only kind of fine. You might see Blightherder just because it does reasonable sizing in this matchup. So he's probably getting rid of anything that actually exiles a creature, so that one's not super relevant. Ratchet Bomb's fine, but a little bit slow. He has a lot of iffy options.
So for those of you joining us, we're here at the Charlotte Open in Season 2 on the SCG Tour. This is in the middle of a month of great Magic. You see over here October 14th and 15th in Modern in Charlotte, but we have tournaments for the rest of the month. Next weekend, we're going to be having a Modern Open just a few hours away in Cincinnati, which you can make it out to. And then the following weekend will be our Legacy Open of the season. That's October 20th and 29th in Washington, D.C. It's open weekend. Following week, we go and have our regional championships, which I'll tell you more about later. Those are happening all around the country. They're November 4th in Modern. Then we end the season with a Team Open in Baltimore. 2 weeks after that, you're going to need a team of 3 for that. 1 player playing Standard, 1 player playing Modern, and 1 player playing Legacy. You can make it out to any of those open weekends. Remember, making the top 8 of any of those events qualifies you for our Season 2 Invitational, December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd in Roanoke, Virginia.
Great mix of events here. A lot of Modern and Legacy coming down and featuring Standard for Baltimore and the Invitational.
And when you show up with these, you get playmats just for attendance, depending on the tournament you enter. So we have the Bantu the Glorified playmat for all Standard, Open, and Classic competitors. For Legacy, it's going to be the Spell Pierce art. Or sorry, for Modern, this will be Spell Pierce art. And for Legacy, you get the Days Invocation. All these are available free with entry to any Open or Classic or part of our Infinite Challenge packages here on the SCG Tour.
Spell Pierce is nice right now. Just legal in Standard, Modern, and Legacy. Just recently reprinted. Even seeing a good amount of Standard play. We've seen the Teamer Energy decks leverage Spell Pierce in Standard.
Now for Todd Stevens, the #1 player, he was your winner in Season 1 on the SCG Tour. He was the points leader. The 31-year-old from Denton, Texas, originally now living in Roanoke. Modern really has been his format, making it to his first Players' Championship last year. knowing as an innovator of the format, had a hand in Bant Eldrazi, Eldrazi Tron, Red White Prison, and Green White Company. 4 decks in one format is a resume that's hard to match.
Haven't seen him bust it out for a live tournament, but also the doubling season Planeswalkers deck, a favorite Stevens build of mine.
Todd on the play here for game number 2. Dan is on a 6-card hand, and Todd will start out on Noble Hierarch.
There aren't a lot of decks that dismember a turn 1 Hierarch. Eldrazi Tron, pretty light on 1-for-1 interaction.
That's exactly what Dan will do.
Dan Musser's entire deck is predicated on the idea of generating mana advantage. So Noble Hierarch, pretty similar to Eldrazi Temple if you think about it like that. So you do want to stop Todd from pulling ahead.
Urza's Mine. I believe this is another Urza's Mine. Dan mixing up the arts.
Classy.
See, back when it was a really good idea to have each card have 4 different arts, we made these lands to count to see which ones you have. Ramnap Excavator from Todd Stevens here, as he then will play the Windswept Heath out of the graveyard.
So some of the multiple art things make sense. You get your pick of High Tide, get your pick of Hymn to Turok, but permanents on the battlefield that check card types.
Well, that pulley there, that's clearly a mine. And that thing in a furnace, that's definitely not a power plant. That's also a mine. This next one's a Cavern of Souls. So Eldrazi will be uncounterable. He'll make a Walking Ballista on 1. See if he chooses to shoot that Birds of Paradise.
Yeah, with Ramnap Excavator plus fetch land here, Stevens will be able to keep making land drops every turn. You can keep playing that fetch land, cracking it, playing it every turn with the Excavator. The Birds of Paradise, not very important when you know that your opponent has their next indefinite land drops rolled up. Of course, the Walking Ballista doesn't really matter very much on this battlefield either. Dan's ever able to assemble Tron, he can start making that very large very quickly, but for now, really small.
Todd draws a basic forest there. I mentioned with that Windswept Heath in play, he'd like to avoid drawing lands. So he already has them set up with Ramnap Excavator.
Stevens produced a Sousa.
Okay, so now I like this.
Now he's going off.
Yeah, now he can play a lot of land. He can play 2 additional lands per turn, and he can play them out of his graveyard. So that Windswept Heath is going to go to work. So now I got to count how many fetchable lands. Let's see, he even has 5 forest, 2 plains, 2 temple garden. So 9 total. We're going to see those all come out of his deck in a hurry.
And these cards combine with a couple things that Stevens has available in his deck. If he gets a Ghost Quarter, he just gets to start triple quartering every turn. That'll close this game in short order. This also combines really well with Courser of Crucifix, just because with the fetch land, you can get a lot of extra looks at a potential top deck.
Yeah, even if you don't find anything, you can still choose to shuffle, which he would do. And you now see he fetched twice, got Courser of Crucifix, and now he can continue doing this. So the additional Windswept Heath, he'll gain a life. Attack with Ramnap Excavator. See, I can appreciate this out of an all-creature deck. This is the more Todd's deck starts doing this, the more I start to want to play it.
It's really in full commander mode now. And no 4th land for Musser.
No, and that's a big miss. Todd will draw the Path to Exile. Knight of the Reliquary on top of the deck.
Yeah, with another land, Musser would be looking at things like maybe leveling up the Ballista, taking care of a Sousa, or even just keeping the Ballista and killing the birds if you wanted to go that route, but just can't do much of anything with it on only 3 lands.
Todd would have been pretty interested in a Knight of the Reliquary, but I think getting 3 more lands this turn is just too good to pass up. And that's what he's going to do.
You get to a position where you can cast all of your spells and activate Gavany Township on the same turn.
Yeah, he has made no land drops yet this turn. That fetch land started the turn in play, so he can get up to 3 more lands. So land drop 1, Windswept Heath, he'll go to 16. Stays at 16 as he pays a life to use the fetch land and then gets a land.
Yep.
There's the second Plains. Still has 3 more forests left in the deck as targets. Minus any that might be in his hand. Noble Hierarch, imagine he will not want that one.
Yep, does not really add anything meaningful here.
Goes to 17. Gets another land. He still has 1 more land drop left. And now he can really control his draws with these fetch lands as well.
Mm-hmm. Even if you're not finding a land, you can always use the fetch land to shuffle.
Right. He can play the land from his graveyard, and if he likes his top card, he does not have to use it this turn. Though it's Noble Hierarch again, you see a bit of a grin on his face. I think he'd like to find some sort of threat.
Yeah, probably still doesn't want to draw Noble Hierarch.
Yeah. Gonna cast Stony Silence. To further make Dan's board look like it does nothing. Can attack with the team, and thanks to that interaction between Azusa and Ramaneb Excavator, these Gavany Township activations are so free.
Mm-hmm. Plenty of mana laying around for that.
Yeah, can even tap too much for one.
Yeah, because of the Township, Musser couldn't even use the Ballista to shoot the birds in response to the Stony Silence because it's a 1/2 now.
Puts one on counter each of his creatures. And does still have 1 land drop left. Looks at the fetch land in the graveyard, forest in play. He'll go ahead and play the fetch land, go to 18. We'll see how much more of this Dan wants to put up with. Seagate Wreckage. All right, Thought Not Seer. He's going to gain some information. Todd's hand, 2 Path to Exile. And Dan, he's had enough. We'll go to a 3rd game.
One last look, maybe see some fancy sideboard tech.
You know, and I remember last time we covered this deck from Todd Stevens, this might have seemed like a strange game. It felt like most games Todd was winning by his opponents conceding rather than actual damage. In a lot of ways, he was a prison deck.
Yep. And once you have that setup that he had there, he's committing a lot of game actions every turn as well, and his board presence is just kind of spiraling out of control, in addition to having control over his draw step to some extent. Right.
So you'd see these boards, Dan just stops wanting to play through that. So we go back to looking at the sideboards. Now here's something, this is the second match we've had Dan on camera. We saw him play against Ad Nauseam and Rohrbacher earlier, and that was a combo deck, and now we're seeing him play against a creature deck. Both times, I remember against Ad Nauseam, he didn't sideboard any cards, and I don't feel like he's sideboarding any cards here as well.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the thing about playing in no colors. You don't have a ton of options.
Yeah, so I mean, even against 2 very different decks, so each of his options, they have to be pretty, I would assume, to be very specific.
Yeah, all this stuff is very focused. It's kind of hateful artifacts and light interaction for particular types of spells.
Yeah.
Green-white creatures is not something that they really print hate cards for, certainly at no colors.
Deathmark. Yeah, non-colorless. So Dan Musser moving up to number 8 here on our Season 2 leaderboard. The 32-year-old from Akron, Ohio has 12 open top 8s of his own, including 2 wins. He has a master's degree in applied mathematics and actually runs a Pokemon YouTube channel. That's something I did not know.
No, that's news.
So a lot of different games into Pokemon. Also qualified for the Force of Will World Championships. That's another collectible card game.
Curious to know if that's Pokemon Game Boy game or the card game.
Or Pokemon Go.
Or the TV show.
I would hope it's the TV show. That'd be great. Where you just do, episode analysis.
Yeah. Some fan theories.
Yeah.
There's some nice Pokemon fan theories.
Dan been on 6 cards both games here. That last one, his lack of early interaction really got punished on Todd's side. The Ramaneb Excavator plus Azusa just running away with the game. Even with a 7-card hand, he does not have too many ways to interact with that.
Musser's draw was certainly below average.
Sure.
He just played 2 of the same Tron land, so we believe. Cast Walking Ballista for 1 and didn't do much else.
His early removal is what he has: two Dismember. He has up to 2 Spatial Contortion in the sideboard, and then we're looking at Ratchet Bombs.
Yeah, light interaction, but also just his proactive plan wasn't coming together.
Sure, there weren't Thought Knots into Smashers. Turn 1, Grafdigger's Cage from Dan Musser. So creatures may not enter the battlefield from libraries.
From collected company.
Yeah. So it'll stop collected company. Anything else in Todd's deck, or is it just company?
Pretty sure we're just looking at company.
You can't cast cards in graveyards. That will not stop Ramanep Excavator. His lands aren't cast, so Todd still can use that. We see Power Plant and Mine and Expedition Map from Musser. Turn 2, Stony Silence from Todd Stevens. That'll shut down Expedition Map before Dan gets a chance to crack. But just Natural Tron on turn 3 for Dan Musser means Reality Smasher is hitting in for 5, and Relic of Progenitus is being cast. Relic not doing too much.
Drew this one too, Todd. It is relevant to end up empty on cards if Dan's able to produce a Seagate Wreckage.
Well, I was going to say because it gave him Metalcraft. But
sure.
Todd plays Knight of the Reliquary.
Unfortunately, Musser won't be able to use the Relic to check that one. He'd love to have a Dismember here.
Yeah, Knight is up to a 3/3. It really would be the concern would be that Todd has a path to exile here. Eldrazi Temple from Musser. Karn Liberated, the play from Dan.
That one's also good.
Yeah, exiles the Knight, swings in for 5. Who needs these artifacts if you just have the threats in hand? Linvala, the draw from Todd. That's not going to do too much in the face of Karn.
Nope.
Todd will try another Knight of the Reliquary and a Horizon Canopy.
And if Musser wants to, he could just spend the rest of Karn on this Knight.
Sure.
Stevens at 9 is reasonable.
Yeah, it would put Todd down to 4. Now, that would put him back to being soft to a path to exile, which that could be a concern. We'll see how Musser wants to play.
Yeah. Pretty safe to just +4 the Karn. From 7, it's hard for the Knight to kill it on the following turn.
Sure.
And if the Knight's attacking, it's not blocking. That's pretty similar to Karning it.
And he decides to try to keep the Planeswalker around. He's going to move it up to 7. Todd will exile a card. It's going to be Collected Company.
That makes sense. Can't cast that.
Yeah, I suppose
one.
that doesn't do anything. A swing here. The Knight could be a 4/4. Todd could use the Horizon Canopy, but that's still not big enough yet. Todd drops down to 4. Draws Sigarda. I believe, was that Sigarda Heron's Grace or Sigarda Host of Herons?
Host of Herons, I do believe.
Yes, 5-mana Sigarda Host of Herons, the play. This from Avacyn Restored. 5/5 flying hexproof. Spells and abilities your opponent's control can't cause you to sacrifice permanents, so all his dust is off the board here.
Can still cause them to be exiled, though. Good chance you see Karn hit the Knight, attack. That would force a trade with Sigarda.
Yeah, Todd would have to block. Sorcerer's Spyglass. So this card from Ixalan, it's the new one we see in Dan Musser's deck. When there's a battle, he looks at Todd's hand, then he can name a card and activate abilities of that card. Cannot be activated unless they're mana abilities. Let's see if he's in a name. It looks like Knight of the Reliquary.
Other option on this battlefield, he could have named Horizon Canopy to stop it from redrawing. The Knight activation is generally the best activated ability in Stevens' deck.
Yeah, there were options, right? Ghost Quarter is another one. He doesn't name Knight of the Reliquary, though. You know, with Knight, Ryan, with Knight not being online, Dan doesn't have to use Karn to get rid of the Knight yet.
Yeah, that's true. Though if he doesn't, I guess he gets a +4 loyalty this turn, which checks most of the Sigarda attack, even if that is Stevens' line. So you might just see him hang tight.
Yeah, well, he could, if he wants to trade Reality Smasher with Sigarda, he can still attack here. Right? Todd either puts Knight in front of it and the Knight dies, or he can offer the trade with Sigarda.
Yeah.
And Dan's going to make that. He'll swing without using Karn. So Todd can make the trade happen, or he can offer a chump block with Knight. Interesting choice here for Todd Stevens.
It's tough. The knight's not doing much otherwise.
Yeah, it's a 3-3 right now, so he'll block. He'll take 2 points of trample and go to 1. Now the decision's easy for Karn. Though I guess he could exile the Stony Silence if he really cared to. He'll just take a card out of Todd's hand and play a land.
Yeah, exile Stony Silence on this turn, likely not to play, in part because then Sigarda can just take care of Karn. The abilities he gains access to with the Stony Silence card just don't amount to a full Karn's worth of value.
Sure.
You get a random card in the land. This game is really just being fought on the battlefield right now.
Todd's going to draw off Horizon Canopy, hits Tireless Tracker. Sigarda puts Karn down to 6. Path to Exile picked up for Todd. He's and a Tireless Tracker, though he's short on mana to cast both. And remember, if he wants to path that Reality Smasher, he has to also keep an extra card.
Right. At 1, though, he's got to get this Smasher off the battlefield.
Yeah, so the path is, he's more or less locked into using that path.
Yep. Then path plus discard plus Karn hitting the hand, that'll leave Todd empty.
Dan draws. Well, first he'll go and see what Todd has going on. Here's a swing with Reality Smasher. It's lethal. Todd has the path, discards Tireless Tracker. So Dan's gonna go get a Wastes. We'll see if he wants to just plus that Karn. He'll cast Thought Knot Seer. That gets Todd's last card, of course, or Crewfix. Sounds great.
And now he can use Karn. He can go for the Stony Silence, or even really the birds. Just wants to find a way to connect with the Thought Knot Seer. Given that 4-mana spells, specifically the Collected Company, are offline for Stevens, you probably just go for the Stony Silence right now.
Yeah, I can also see a plus.
Yeah, just
still
get
being
heavy
fine.
on loyalty, still totally reasonable.
Yeah. He'll just plus. Says go. It's safe. Todd, he can attack.
Yeah, he still has the birds to chump block.
He'll cast another Stony Silence and then just say go.
Yeah, attacking with Sigarda here, a little bit too dangerous.
This Karn really has run away with the game, though. It has Todd in this bind where he can't attack the Karn, but if he doesn't attack the Karn, he'll lose to it.
Yep. Musser not really interested in restarting the game with nothing of value under Karn, but he can inevitably just -3, targeting Stevens' permanents one at a time, take over the game that way.
And they're establishing just which of these cards are actually under the Karn. Looks like neither Reliquary and Sigarda. The Corsair Crewfix was taken by Thought Knot Seer, so it's not actually under Karn.
Having 5 power on turn 1 of the game, or turn 0 of the game, rather, not a bad spot.
Todd drew a second Birds of Paradise. That's enough to have him attack with the Sigarda. And he's going to Dan Endstep Dismembers. Dismember on a bird, untap Karn on another bird. Swing of Thought Knot is lethal. Both of them know it, and that will be the game and the match for Dan Musser. With Eldrazi Tron, he improves to 5-0.